Good morning, San Francisco. In Lincoln's first inaugural address, Lincoln advised in his speech that he was on either the North or the South side, but he saw both of their point of views. When giving his address, he was very careful as to not say something that would cause more ambiguity in the nation. In order for him to preserve his beloved Union, he needed the support from both sides. Slavery was an overwhelming and controversial issue at the time for both the Confederates and the Unionists. Lincoln's main issue was to preserve the Union, not slavery. In one of his speeches, he stated that if he needed to free the slaves, he would do it. If he needed to free some slaves, he would do it. And if he needed to maintain slavery, he would do it, just in order to preserve the Union. We are here today to interview the man who started it all, the man with all the answers, and the man who truly knows, the man who is truly known for leading his country through the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation. Take it away, Abe.
Oh, man.
Oh, hey, good morning, San Francisco. I didn't even see you there. My name is Emily Chesler, and I have the pleasure of filming our very own Abraham Lincoln today. Lincoln.
Oh, hi.
Good morning.
Hello.
First, I'd like to congratulate you on your presidential election. I'm sure leading up to this point wasn't that easy. What did you feel was going to be the main controversial issue?
The main controversial issue in my election I knew would be slavery. It had been an ongoing topic that had been getting pushed to the side and ignored, and I was the first to touch on the topic, and I wanted to take action on it.
In the 1840s, following the Kansas-Nebraska Act, it had seemed you were finished with politics. Why did this change?
I was unhappy with what was happening in my home state in Illinois, so I began to attack the legislation, and particularly Stephen A. Douglas, on the issue of slavery.
It was made pretty clear that you and Mr. Douglas had your differences. What were you so adamantly against that he was in favor for?
On the first hand, the most important point was that I was against slavery and he was for it. And he wanted to expand it, and I did not at all. His thoughts on the Kansas-Nebraska Act and on popular sovereignty threatened the Founding Fathers' view on republicanism. He also attacked me on the fact that I opposed the Dred Scott case because I believed that I could allow slavery to spread into the free states.
Following your loss to Douglas in 1858, you made a speech in New York City denouncing slavery and its spread. What effect do you think this had on raising your political profile?
In New York, I made the speech at Cooper Union, where I stated that the Founding Fathers did not intend slavery or popular sovereignty, and it made clear that we can no longer be split in the middle. We must choose one side, and that side was anti-slavery. My speech was strong, and it seemed to have made myself an exceptionally popular person in New York.
From this, you began to seek the Republican nomination, am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. After this triumph, I began to win the nomination in the Republican National Convention, and I strategically won support in the northern states by stating my views that appealed to them, such as the protective tariff that appealed to Pennsylvania.
Being a major component of the Republican Party, how did you view the future of the world?
I view the future of the world as one that slavery is gone and the North and South have come together under one union and for there to be no hostility.
Where did you get your nicknames Honest Abe and the Rail Candidate from?
My nickname, the Rail Candidate, I got by my supporters because my 1860 candidacy depicted as held up by the slavery issue. I got my nickname Honest Abe for my integrity and insistence on honesty throughout my life, from my early years as a cashier to President of the United States.
That's great. In the election of 1860, you had a landslide of votes from northern states and rocked the Electoral College. However, you did not carry any southern states. What was that about, Abe?
I got the vote that I expected. I knew the South felt their rights and slaves were threatened if I won, so they did not vote for me. I knew they weren't going to vote for me.
Right. Okay. And what was the Crittenden Compromise?
The Crittenden Compromise was a convention that was called to order by the state of Virginia. Virginia, on the verge of secession, was looking for a way they could compromise with the federal government before making the final decision.
And do you believe your election as president brought upon the issue of secession and the South to secede from the Union?
I believe the South was threatened by me, so they fled. In years past, they were able to compromise their way through keeping slavery, but once I won the election, they knew they would not be able to any longer. Therefore, they seceded.
Why do you think a number of southern states left the Union to form the Confederates?
The southern states left the Union because they wanted to keep their slavery intact and rigid, and they saw me as a threat to that.
Right. And let's say when South Carolina first seceded, what were your immediate thoughts? Could you predict the growing political split in the nation?
Once South Carolina left the Union, I knew there would be more followers. I would have wished they would hear me out before making assumptions that I was trying to get rid of slavery. After South Carolina, the Southerners kept seceding from the Union, forming the Confederacy.
Being that you were so pro-union, how do you feel about Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederates?
I feel that Jefferson Davis has committed treason against his country in his position as leader of the Confederacy, and he advocated secession and a split of our country.
While you were against the South's belief in your inaugural address, you were very diplomatic, supporting both the North and South. Why was this?
What was your question? Yeah, you can. Okay, the next one, you want to say? This was to explain to the South that I had no lawful duty to try and take away their slavery or use force, unless the preservation of the Union was being threatened.
However, it's clear that your speech was directed primarily towards the South. Am I correct?
You are correct. The North already knew my intentions. The South needed to know how I felt about secession and that any attack to break up our Union would be met with force.
The South wanted an expansion of slavery, but what could you provide them with?
I knew the South wanted expansion, and I was against that, but I was not trying to take out slavery in the states that already had it. I was for the fugitive slave law and intended to keep slavery in the South, but I was against the expansion of it.
Can you recite to me the end of your speech and its meaning, please?
At the end of my address, I stated, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained it, must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot, graved to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature." And this quote, at the end of my thing, I meant that it included what I was trying to say, because it was my final plea to the South to try and be peaceful with the Union and try to preserve it and avoid the conflict that was arising in our country.
Get through that
Were you ever threatened by the Confederates?
go.
Ever enough to back down, give up?
The Confederate Army came out very strong, but I knew that the North had a strong army and we would prevail. I was never at the point where I was going to back down, because once I got to the point of war, it was the point of no return.
You have such a great attitude about everything. It was really great to meet you today.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Great time.
So here you go, America. You've heard it here first and in the flesh. For the first time since this all occurred a couple years ago in 1860 through the years of 1865. Conflicts over the issues of how to control the federal government should have had over the states' industrialization, trade, and especially slavery has increased tension between northern and southern states. Abraham Lincoln was elected as president in 1860. 11 southern states seceded from the Union and set up an independent government, which they called the Confederate States of America. These events led to the outbreak of the Civil War, a brutal, bloody, 4-year conflict that left the South defeated and ended slavery at the cost of more than 500,000 lives. The 1860 presidential election is perhaps one of the most muddled and brutal in American history, and after today's show, we know why. So thanks, San Francisco, and tune in tomorrow for a special show with Andrew Johnson and how his presidency helped shape our country as well.
Better angles of our nature. What?
Why are you laughing?
What did he mean by that?
Emily!
I'm sorry. Sorry, your speech gets funny. Emma, turn around. Sorry, it's such a... No, Doug, leave.
No,
seriously.
Doug, move.
Out.
Out.
Leave.
Em, stop.
Doug, no,
Dougie!
I'll actually kill you.
Go.
I don't think I can get through the whole thing.
Well, you have to ask the question. I don't put it in the I'm just going to do a random answer. Don't even make me recite that quote.
Emily!
It's so funny. At the end of my speech, oh my God.
Just tell me, I swear to God.
I'm getting ready to film the very own. Tune in next week, everyone.